All right, what's up, everybody? So, last class of thought forms and programming, 6 weeks, which is a lot. That's a lot of time to be focused on something like thought forms. There's some topics that are quite like easy, I think. And then maybe topics that can like build like a lot of tension, or like build a lot of like I don't know, can like things that we have to do with like a really soft touch. Thought forms is definitely one of those. And and then I'm gonna give a oh nice. Somebody asked some good questions. I like that. Yeah, please and private message me if you're like, how many thought forms will I get if I buy a monkey? Like if you have a question like that, just please throw it in the chat. If you're like, hey, so I was like, I jumped off of something yesterday and I lit something on fire. They're like, do I have a thought form going on with me right now? Right? Like just ask and you can private message me. But well, but anyways, but I want to say these like little disclaimers because I've been teaching for a while now, right around like COVID time. So it's been like, you know, 5 years ish, Um, and that's not how long I've been doing energy work. Sometimes people confuse that, right? I've been at this much longer. But 5 years ago, I decided maybe it'd be a good idea to teach this stuff. And I'm still not sure. I'm still not convinced. I still think hopefully like we're all wondering if teaching online and like this new kind of like spiritual revival, what it will produce, and I think we'll know in like 10 years, 15 years, right? When we have people who are like black belts in shamanism, who do ritual tattoos, like when that shakes out and it's no longer cool, and then people are doing, I don't know, they're doing like AI apprenticeships in like metaverse, they're doing virtual reality avatar apprenticeships in AI businesses, right? Um, and like, everyone pivots to that, right? That movement that went from like yoga to like breath work to meditation to like entrepreneur, spiritual entrepreneur. All right. So then like it's gonna jump to like AI or something, right? And then we'll see what it produce, right? We'll see what fruits and but right now it's like it's just yeah, it's an interesting moment, So I'm not sure. And but I must say, this course is not permission to copy this course and teach it yourself, right? Like I think unfortunately, I've taught enough that people will just like repackage the thing and like not even that well, right? Like it'll still have the same lesson plan. It'll be like transformation energy work instead of transformative energy work. They'll put like a hyphen somewhere, right? And they're like, it's totally different. It's my own co-created thing, right? So no, you don't have permission to teach it. Unless you can like, if you like really understand these concepts and you took this just for like fun and to hear a different perspective, then do whatever the fuck you want, right? Like that. I'm not trying to limit anybody, but I'm certainly not trying to like add more um people to a field that is already saturated with like grandiosity and self-importance, So like just don't be that guy, who's always there. That guy is always there. He breaks appointments. He somehow always makes it. I'm sure y'all's life is like that, right? We're like, um, that person who's an empath who has to tell everyone they're an empath and like and tell everyone about their spiritual awakening, how they're always there. Don't be that person. So don't teach this stuff. I would even say don't even really use it in too many sessions, right? Unless you can really trust yourself and like are really sure that you can like give the reins to that person's inner wisdom and that person's inner wisdom, vaster wisdom, that you're like aligned and supporting them, this is too heavy-handed, right? This is right. If like working with karma is like behind the scenes, this is like we're working with the script that is behind the scenes, you know? And we want to do that with really soft touches with anyone else, right? So even with our sessions, I would generally say, don't do it. Maybe if you're like several sessions in, if you start like seeing the clouds around people, if you're seeing how they plug into it, then even then ask their inner wisdom if this would be really supportive. And if you feel their inner wisdom kind of like start to separate, right? Like you want to get kind of like a really nice, clear confirmation. And then it's quite easy to like maybe separate them, making sure we're filling their spaces, filling any gaps, right? Like evolving their identity. And then pay attention, right? If that person has, like a breakdown, we might have fucked up, right? Like that might be not as good, right? You were like, we disconnected you from like a false reality into a real one, And then if it's really hard for them to keep their clothes on and they keep running through the streets, like that's a little bit on us. You know what I'm saying? Like plug them back in. And it's sad. I know, these are silly, but it's really sad. But I really have shared this stuff with people that are like, yeah, I push people and I changed their thoughts and like I reworked all of their karma and like they were super resistant and then they like pushed people to the brink. They pushed multiple people, not just one. I know like three people. And obviously they get that's this person and they're really trying. They're really trying really hard to matter. Um, but trying really hard to matter with these kind of techniques means that like yeah, maybe we're going to be really heavy handed, and I'm attempting to intervene with all of these people, right? Um Unfortunately they're always like, you're no, they're like, I realize I'm better than you at energy work. This always happens with these people. They're just like, I realize you're my peer and not my teacher, and like maybe you can learn from me. So it always gets weird, right? So, but anyways, um, so please don't be heavy-handed in sessions, but please do a lot of this for yourself, right? Like really introspect every once in a while in a cool way, not a heavy-handed way. Get curious at like the thought forms around people, you know? Um, unless they're our client, we don't have permission to shift those. But peek, have fun, Look at like celebrities. Be careful, but look at politicians, and just kind of maybe I'll say like heal our resistance to other people's like opinions, other people's paths, other people's beliefs, right? Like, and which we're gonna do more of that today is like create that like that separation. But hopefully I've been emphasizing like we need to respect those things. And that's a big part of the healing for ourselves is respecting that people get to have that exploration and experience, right? So please do a lot of that. Um, and if ever you guys like want to teach this stuff, just ask me. Um, and be open if I'm like you're not ready. Be open if I'm like I would chill. I would heal your relationship with your mom, right? And if you flip a chair, then like maybe heal your relationship with your mom more, right? But that happens too, right? People will be like, am I ready? And I'm like, no, but these are the specific things you can do. And then they'll be like, man, fuck this. They're like, this is some bullshit, bro. So anyways, I'm just trying to front load this because I hope I will never ever be online and see someone uh teaching a course that they just took. But they probably the gods probably are not going to be able to provide me that. Right, life's probably going to throw a couple more curveballs. So again, this course qualifies you to start doing this work, right? It's a map, and then traversing that map is quite hard. right? If you ever, I mean, we don't have maps anymore, right? But if you ever go hiking, maybe that's the last places we have maps, but now we have apps for those maps. Um, it's quite different, right? You can like look at the whole hiking trail and you're like, oh my God, it's like this much of a hike, you know? But then if it's like each mile is like 3 centimeters, right? And then your like elevation change is 15,000 feet or something, right? Then like, although it looks this big on our map, um, the walking of that landscape is the hike, right? Just having the map does not mean I've hiked it, right? I'm giving us a map and we're making a really beautiful container so that we're having breakthroughs. That does not make us experts, and that doesn't qualify us to teach this yet. You know, we have to hike that thing, and then if we want to lead people on that hike, I would say like I probably need to do that hike at least like 5 times, preferably 10 times. All right, maybe I need to like take a couple of my friends before I tell people I'm a professional hiker. I'm I'm a professional rememberer of like the inner hiking that outer hiking is. And I don't just like hike the trail. The trail and I, the yin and yang, are the adventure. Right? And I'm like, you do pottery. They're like, no, I'm a remembered mud worker like our ancestors. Right. And I'm like, you do just do pottery. It's okay to just do pottery. So with this, right, like practice it, practice, right? Unplug from these collective stories, paradigms. When people are suffering in our life that we love, kind of like look behind, like see them, scoot it over. And the greatest gift we can give them is like see the thought forms that they're stuck in, heal your own version, and just like show them that, right? Which hopefully I've been trying to say this for a couple of weeks, right? So for example, right, let's say this isn't true. Yeah, but let's say, you know, if a family member was like having a really hard time with all of the violence on the earth right now, and they're like overwhelmed, they can't stop crying, they feel really powerless, they're pissed all the time, they're kind of lashing out at several people, um, you know, in their workplace, right? And so let's say like the pressure that they're in, if I was to look at the thought forms, right, I might find a lot, right? I might find a lot of like cultural, personal thought forms, right? If this person's a family member, I might find an overlap with some of our own kind of shared family and ancestral lineage, right? Of like, and this is true. Anytime there's like war, our ancestral body remembers the wars we've been in, right? Especially as places are being like colonized. Um, the ancestors that have experienced colonization are going to like feel that. Um, Anytime there's like famine, droughts, our ancestors feel that and they can respond to that, right? So what I could do with this family member is like say hello to that ancestral survival response. And then when we think about thought forms, right, I'm gonna look at like the content a little bit of that story, right? So I'm gonna see the cloud around them. I'm gonna see the pressure around them, and I'm gonna see the way that they're being pushed in a direction, maybe, right? Like there's a war happening somewhere else in the world, and on some level, my body is prepping for this war, right? My ancestors are prepping for when it reaches us, right? And when we think about historically, if you heard about a war, it's because it was 2 days out distance, right? Like it was proximal. Um, and then maybe with the advent of like newspapers, maybe you had the capacity to see or hear about a war like happening on of this side of the earth, right? But typically it's quite immediate, right? So, anyways, and that's for most of human history, right? Even if it was like we've had newspapers reporting on war for 200 years, that means for the last 20,000 years, war was what you heard, what someone ran to tell you, right? So because 200 years for the whole of human history isn't that much. It's very short. So, but anyway, so I'm going to look at these kind of thought forms, the pressurization. And then what I'm going to do is kind of find that matching energy in me, right? What parts of my life are pressurized? And if you are a human on Earth breathing, then I'm sure you felt some of this pressure and intensity, right? And we're just going to find a little bit of that pressure, right? Maybe, I might find tension in my jaw, like somewhere in my body. I might just gently hold that. So this is physical pressure. I'm going to hold that physical pressure and just gently open. I'm going to find pressure. And depending on where we're at, we might be like, somehow I'm like not doing enough. We might feel powerless to change things, right? We might feel powerless to help the people that we want to help or educate the people we want to be educated on a particular issue. So I might just find that pressure to be like, well, maybe, well, one would be like if I was to hold the powerlessness, let's say, like as I find the powerlessness and the pressure around it, I can like open to a desire to like help, to a desire to like, again, maybe educate people, to a desire to like contribute positively, which might be like sending money, right? But not knowing, not having any places where I can do that, right? Like sometimes people are like, you need to send money to these charities, right? And like if you look at how the charity spends money, often like their overhead and how much they pay staff, right? And like I don't know, but like they'll have like a CEO that makes like $500,000, right? So like I'm maybe a way to kind of touch into that powerlessness, and I can like feel how I don't have enough information to actually be like beneficial. And then I can like jump on Google. And so that powerlessness can actually direct me towards like learning more about this issue. Um, so that would be an example of like how pressurization can actually um, be shifted so I can actually do something beneficial. And then again, I'm just going to offer that, right? Just going to put it outside of their aura. Maybe the bigger ancestral stuff, right? So this would be our ancestors are terrified that there's a war and that like we are going to be next, right? We're going to fight next. Again, this is scary, this is heavy, right? So I apologize for such a big example, but um, that maybe like our home is next, our family is next, right? And so we would ground. If I've supported the body, I've supported maybe the feelings, right? So now with this ancestral body, we can make a bubble big enough to hold our ancestors and big enough to hold their story. I'm going to look at the story. And again, we're always going to start by validating that this is like real for them, right? That there's these survival strategies are like tried and true, right? As annoying as moms are, right? Where we like don't answer a text message and they have an image of us like face down in a ditch, dead, right? And they're like freaking out. And I'm like, what? And they're like, you didn't answer two of my FaceTimes. I was positive, I've reported you as missing, like, um, please answer your phone. And you look, right? And like the two FaceTimes or the text messages, right? It's been like 7 minutes, right? But that concern is there due to survival, right? It's there because it's worked, right? It is annoying. And maybe we might be like frustrated by it. We might think it's over emotional. We might have a lot of judgments, right? But it would not be there unless that strategy really worked, right? And we all have examples of like moms knowing when something crazy happened, you know? And like mom's like, car breaks down, mom just like jumps in the car, drives to that part of town and like picks us up. You're like, what? How did you know? And they're just, I don't know. Like I just knew. Um, all the time, right? So I would relate to this ancestral fear. Maybe we could say intuition, we could say survival strategy, and see it as like profound love, profound care, but maybe really out of touch, right? If I'm gearing up for war and my ancestors are terrified while I'm at work, and in an office, and like I need to communicate with a lot of people in like really thoughtful ways, um, then like this ancestral tension and fear and pressurization might like impact our ability to keep a job, which will then impact like our protective factors in whatever's next, right? So we could literally have that conversation with our ancestors, right? So like this story is coming in and we just dialogue with that story, right? And if we can really kind of like, so again, thought form might be like a cloud, maybe around our ancestors could be like a little bit of a box, and they're putting us in that box a little bit. And we would just be like, hey, thank you for this box. I love this box. If it was up to me, I would live in this box. Right? Maybe, right? This would be like if it was up to our mom, right? Like we would live in like the room right next to her. I don't know about y'all's mom, but if it was up to my mom, like I would live under her bed, right? Like and then I would get married and have kids, and then they would just like sleep in the cubby next to her, and she would just get to hold them like 24/7 if it was up to my mom, right? So if it was up to these ancestral programs, we would be so profoundly safe, right? Like we would never have to drive a car. It would always be the right temperature. We'd always be fed, right? So we'd be like, love your box. Awesome box. Great grandma, Gretchen. Thank you. Love it. I have a job. And if I'm this intense, right? If my nervous system is this hijacked, I am not going to be able to focus. I won't be able to be kind. And then I won't be able to make money, right? And then I'll be like, and then I won't be able to buy food, right? So could you help me, like, instead of being tunnel vision, could you help me actually understand why there's a war right now? Instead of being focused on fighting it, would you help me have an analysis of like how, major corporations, which is really important to look at, also like, right, like the US has like mercenary armies that make like billions of dollars when there's wars, right? And that's not conspiracy theory. Like that's not even like political. Um, like this is, if you look at like BlackRock, I think, and then they're owned by a certain thing, and like, and all the people that like in the government that like invest money into these companies and all the money that they use to get people elected. Again, not conspiracy theories. You can look these things up. I think they call it like dark money. Fascinating, really important, right? And I might be like, ancestors, will you help me understand like what's happening instead of having me feel like powerless and like, snappy at my, coworker who I have a sneaking suspicion voted for Trump, right? Right? You're like, who I've started to consider, you're like, I don't know, man. Like I see his eyes shift sometimes when they shouldn't be shifting, right? And then our ancestors are like terrified, right? You're like, and I don't know, man. I don't know, something about him. Um, right. So if I'm taking this little cloud of thought forms that are pressurizing us, maybe even limiting us, but promising safety, and I'm like redirecting them and these resources to be like, will you help me have a greater understanding of my world, what's happening, so that I can feel more powerful and capable, so I can make more like better choices. right? And then our ancestors will like align to us. And then what I'm saying next is like, and then I just offer that possibility to this family member. I mean, you could even offer that possibility to coworkers, but there's less overlap, right? Like, because my this family member and I share ancestors, there's a lot more overlap, right? Like great, great grandma Gretchen and Eloise, right? They always have funny names, right? Like I'm trying to think of the really old school names, right? Great grandma Eloise will also talk to them. Will also like help them feel spacious at work because that's tied to their survival. Um, right? While like maybe our ancestors, when things got really scary, they would pull back, isolate, be mean and snappy to other people, and then kind of like protect everything, right? And right now, I'm like, again, I'm like, if I get snappy and like too inward, like I'm gonna lose my job. Great grandma Eloise, right? So like, if we kind of create that spaciousness, that can ripple through our family as a possibility, again, according to their own inner wisdom, doing soft touches, right? And then I can offer that to my coworkers, but we don't have shared ancestors. I don't know what their like ancestral story is. Their ancestral story is tied to survival, right? But they might have a very different strategy. Um, they might have a very different like kind of like let's say a trajectory as they're relating to this, right? The same experience that maybe in my body is creating a lot of fear, for them might create a lot of shame, right? For me, might create a lot of anger. For them, might create a lot of like self-isolation, right? Like, so we don't know what's going to happen with that recipe, but life is giving us certain ingredients, right? Like life dropped off habaneros and Thai peppers, it dropped off 10-pound boxes for everyone. Um, and you can try to like put one in ice cream, right? You could try to like make, you know, smoothies with some of those chilies, right? But those ingredients, every different community of people will relate to these ingredients differently. Um, okay, so let me say on this. So like, I I'm Mexican. I grew up in the hood. I got to go to Japan twice in this life so far. And I went to Japan and like while I was there, they try to give me the weirdest foods ever. So there's this one thing, it's and sorry if anyone has like a gag reflex with foods like that, right? Like, but they would take me to restaurants, right? And they would like cut a sea urchin open, take a couple of things out, and then put it on my plate. And I would just be like, I'm like, and I'm like, tastes like feet, And then they're like, oh my God, he ate it. They gave me fermented soybeans. And like you like shake the little soybeans and you eat them, and there's like a string from the plate to your mouth when you eat the soybeans. And they taste like they taste rotten. But I was like, okay, not my favorite. And then they cracked a raw egg on it, put a little bit of soy sauce, right? And I'm like, all right, okay, we're escalating, like, and then it got really slimy, and I was like, okay. But the thing that really threw me off is they had kidney beans that were sweetened inside of pastries. And that kind of like fucked me up more, right? Like it was like unfamiliar things, and it was like really weird. But then this was like red beans that I'm like, so they're frijoles, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, that we eat those, right? But they were sweet, but it still had the texture of like refried beans, but they were inside of a pastry. And I swear I was like, all right, I'm done. Y'all fucking wait. I was like, all right. Sign, I clock out, you win. Japan, y'all are crazy. Like, and up until that point, they would be like, oh shit, you're like a samurai. Like you eat everything. And they'd be like, no American eats these things, but like Mexicans, you guys can eat. I would eat oh, they had a particular spice. I don't think it was nutmeg. it was something like cumin or something, and like they would put so much that like your mouth, your like face goes numb. I forgot. I don't know what spice it might be cumin or something. But they put it in a soup that they take every single part of the eel and they put it in there. And I would eat it and my face would go numb. And I was like, I want more. And they'd be like, you're a samurai, bro. And I'd be like, I don't know, but it's good. Red bean pastries fucked me right up. I couldn't do it. I took like a couple bites and I was like, I'm out. Sign me out. It's too familiar. So life has given us all the same trauma. Right? Some people put that shit in pastries and added sugar. Other people made soups with it. And they're all options, right? Some communities experienced trauma and they got really loud. Some of them threw parties and processed their pain with karaoke, right? And we love all these different traditions. The world right now, it seems, is on fire, and our ancestors are interpreting that fire different, right? Some people um, are running from the fire. Some people are hiding from the fire. Some ancestors are like, let's add fire to the fire, right? Some ancestors are like, there's not enough fire. Let's make more fire. Some ancestors are like, well, I have these gasoline-soaked rags. They're like, I've actually had them for a long time. Seems perfect, right? And so we don't know, right? We don't know what we've inherited. But if we look at the thought form clusters that are outside, right? Again, war, and then I let that be a mirror to what's happening in my body. And then the offering I can make is the transformation of my relationship to these thought forms. Does that make sense? Tell me if it does not. It's maybe a little bit of a stretch since what we've been doing, right? And then I do remember we were kind of talking about like, but the idea that like all of these thought forms that they have a storyline, like there's like a plot, there's like a rising action, right? There's like characters, um, the conflict, right? Like, if our ancestors in this particular moment, in this particular example, right? If there's profound terror that like consumes us and shuts us down, right? Like the rising action and the conflict, right? Um, of our ancestral story, of our ancestral thought forms, be specific with my words, right? Um, is one that's intimately tied to survival. And that story is like being triggered and is really loud, right? So then again, of course, we want to be really, really gentle. We want to hold that story and really honor that story, right? Like these are valid. I think sometimes people will be like, I had they're like, I was meditating and my ancestors like showed me that they were really scared of war. And then I told them like, like I told them I'm not gonna light them candles anymore if they keep doing that, And I'm just like, wait, what? Or they'll be like, all right, Google searched and like I didn't find anything on that war, right? Not necessary, right? Just believe him, but believe that energy, whether it's true or not. It's relevant in that it's co-creating this moment, and its relevancy is that like it deserves like our love and attention, right? So, um, okay, so that's like my little like stringing everything we've learned up until this moment, taking it in one really specific direction, right? But maybe uh, I talked about basically thought forms that are already there, right? So I'm like, there's collective thought forms. There's thought forms we've inherited, right? There's a way to plug into thought forms consciously and gently, right? So here would be, and let's say in the midst of this conversation with my ancestors, and they're like freaking out, right? Um, for a variety of reasons. Let's say I lost my car. Well, let's say like my car gets repossessed, right? I lose my car, I lose my house, right? I'm like gonna pack my shit up, live in my truck, couch surf for a while, right? Ancestors are freaking out, right? Mom is calling us. Um, I don't know if any of y'all moms, but anytime I would like be like between jobs, literally I'd be like, left one job, I'm gonna start a new job in 2 weeks. My mom would be like, and this is true, I left from being like the lead trainer at a crisis shelter to then I was gonna be like a facilitator at a domestic violence shelter. And in like the 2 weeks that there was a gap, my mom was like, hey, one of your cousins is a truck driver. You can start working with him, And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm I already got hired at this other place, and she'd be like, for sure. Do you want to do landscaping? There's a guy. I could talk to him. He cut our, he trimmed some of the orchard trees out here. We could get I'm gonna call him just in case, right? Ancestral fear, right? So on some level, our whole ancestral lineage is trying to make sure we get another job, right? Because they're like, we're suffering. So that conversation I can have with these thought forms, right? This storyline, right? Maybe if I was to refine that story, right? I can look at, of course, how shitty my mom's boundaries are, how like not listening, how much she's not listening, right? Um, but if I zoom out, I might be able to look at this situation and see that there is a thought form story of my mom being like, um, that there's a safety net in our community, right? Because she's not like, I'm going to start calling offices, right? She's like, I'm going to start calling people we know, right? And a way to see that thought form, right, is like that the community's got me. Again, it feels shitty because of my mom's boundaries, right? But if I look at like, my mom is reminding me that the community's got me. My ancestors, as freaked out as they are reminding me that the community's got me. Right? A little bit of translation takes a little bit of effort to find that, right? Then what I'm going to say next, right, is that there's bigger archetypal and earth energies and earth stories that I can plug into. Because my mom is like, your community's got you. Maybe my mom's like, your family's got you. And then I can archetypally connect that to the earth and ask the earth if it's got me. And that might be scary. It might be a lot, but you might be able to open to the earth having you, like having your back. And you could open to that, right? I might, so again, mom is like, and again, and mom might be freaking out, right? My mom might be like, oh no, what are we gonna do? Let's I'm gonna get you a bus pass, right? I don't know what mom, right? Like, and right, I might be like, I shouldn't have called her. I fucking had it figured out, right? All of the stress, right? And it might not be mom, it might be partner, right? It might not be mom, partner, it might be friend, right? But person is imposing on us. Um, I'm gonna retranslate their fear into something positive, right? Which is like, and even if it's like as scary as it sounds, there's always a way forward, right? That might be how I can translate this story. My mom might even be like, maybe it'd be easier, like, okay, now dad is like, you fucked up. I told you not to buy that car. It was a shitty car anyways, right? Again, dad, it could be partner, it could be friends, right? Or like, I told you so. Um, I can retranslate that thought form as they tried to put that thought form in my crown, get me to subscribe to it, right? I could translate that to be like, I hear you saying that there's always an opportunity to learn more. I hear you saying, they're like, I told you so, right? It gets to the edge of my aura. And then the I told you so is like, I hear that you really want me to like learn and grow from this experience. And then I can call on the archetypal energies that will help me learn and grow from this experience. So depending on the traditions we come from, in Buddhism, pretty nice because there's like a full range of energies. I might invoke a particular Buddha who is the embodiment of wisdom. And he has a flaming sword, right? And this embodiment of wisdom, I can like invite it to plug into this thought form, which is that I can always learn and grow. Even my greatest mistakes can help us learn and grow. Dang, I think it was Thomas Edison. Maybe not. But anyways, the quote was, and if anyone knows it, but the quote was like, like they're like, I didn't make 1,000 mistakes. I learned, 999 ways to not do it. Like, so if Thomas Edison was like electricity, I think, right? So like, he's like, I didn't fail 1,000 times to make a light bulb. I learned 999 ways that don't work for making light bulbs, and one way that does. Right? Like, there's no learning less. And this confuses people sometimes, but it's a really important principle, right? Like, you could make $1 million and blow it all. And then you can start a new business and blow that all too. But you can't learn less about money, right? And that maybe could be the principle I use to plug into these bigger archetypal energies that remind me that you can never learn less. Maybe that there's never nothing you can do, right? So the powerlessness, I'm like, I feel stuck. I wish there was a way I could help the children of God, right? And I feel powerless at what I see and hear. I can like open to that powerlessness. I can like open to like my not knowing how to help. And then I can open to archetypal energies that are connected to there's never nothing you can do. Right. And as I open to these archetypal energies, right? So I'm creating the story. I'm starting from my own thought form and aspiration, my own story. And then I let that open. And you don't want to like make it so like any random thing can come in, right? Like you want to open to like really like archetypal, like enlightened beings and how they can plug into that there's always something that I can do, right? There's never nothing that I can do, that we can do. And then as I plug in, right, I can ask questions. And sometimes it'll be like, what can I do right now to contribute to this world, right? And it might be like, go for a walk, right? It might literally be like, take a nap, bro, take it easy. It might be something bigger, right? It might be like send an email, like use your platform if we have one, right? Like it might be like talk to these family members, donate in this way, right? But also if we're really open to it, sometimes it's gonna be like take a break, work less hours, right? Clean your house, right? We don't know, right? But if we're connected to an archetype, those possibilities open. We can also invite the transformation again of this ancestral story, which for me, again, like that ancestral story, I'd be like, hey, my survival is tied to like me helping people. It's really scary, but will you guys like help me help more people? Will you help me be extra kind and patient? Because a lot of people are under a lot of stress, right? So I kind of like am listening to that story and then gently redirecting it. No one asked me this question, but I'm gonna pretend someone private messaged me. I'm like, oh my God, that's such a good question. But they're like, okay, how do I make sure I heard the story, right? Um, and and sometimes that's gonna take a while, right? Like sometimes not, sometimes like let's say I might just feel my throat constrict, right? Like I don't know what the story is, but I know the story's telling me to shut up, right? Like it's telling me don't speak up, don't talk. I don't have to know the why to begin to like pull on. I imagine like a tapestry, right? Like in the little strings coming out. I imagine you could start to like pull on that string based on like what we are experiencing in our body, right? So whatever's happening in our body, we can take that and let it continue to open into like what's next, into what's next, into what's next, right? So again, I don't know what's going on, but there's this energy at my throat. As I like, kind of like let it gently open, I might ask a question of like, what would happen if I told the whole truth in this moment, right? And we don't always have to do that. All the time, people are like, authenticity, speaking my whole truth. Authenticity is being like skillful, you know? Oh my God, I'm telling stories. There's only 11 people. One time, a friend of mine studied communication. I taught him a bunch of like how to work with his emotions. We like identified that he was like really trapped, like, kind of like didn't tell the truth because he was scared people would leave him. So he works really hard. He's like starting to heal. He like goes to his partner and he's like, you know what? I'm like ready to tell you my whole truth. And like I'm so disappointed. And I'm like, this is a really sad story. And he's like, he tells his like partner of like however many years, he's like, I don't think you're hot. And I was just like, what? He's like, yeah, I told her. And I was just like, dude, no. That's you suck at this. I was just like, never mind, close your throat back up. Like I was like, we failed, bro. Like, stop taking nonviolent communication. He's just like, I have a need for you to be hotter, and I feel sad. My request is for you to be more hot. He's like, I used I statements. Yeah, I'm like, bro, close your throat. That's it, you're done, bro. Like, no more energy work for you, bro. And that's not true, right? But it was not impressive. And it really was, unfortunately, that terrible. But it really was his best attempt at telling the truth, right? Like, but clearly missed the mark, right? So, anyways, yeah, yeah, close your throat. That's funny. But anyways, okay. Okay, coming all the way back, right? So, if I dialogue with the thought forms, right? If we are exploring, conversating, then like now the next step, the last step, right, is I want to join this story, but like make it bigger, right? Add a and then, right? Like what is it? It's like the rule of like improvisation and like acting and etc. Right? Like if someone's like, okay, there's like a 25-year-old, she lives in Norway, right? I'm like, no, right? Our job is supposed to be like, and she sells seashells, and then they'd be like, no, right? Like, no, they'd be like, by the seashore, right? And I'd be like, and she paints the sky in these shells, right? And then the next person would be like, and she sells them at a farmer's market. And then I would be like, or she trades them for daisies, right? And we kind of just keep building. Our ancestors have a story. These thought forms in the collective, a lot of people just say no to them. And then the story crashes them, right? So our job is to say yes and, right? So right now the world is like, we're at war, you know, and we can, or, you know, the no can't be from this shouldn't be happening, right? The no has to be like, this is happening and we want it to stop. This is happening and the mechanism producing war is intact in humans, right? Like we've kind of always been at war, Like it's really sad. We've never not been at war. You put like two people in a room and they're at war, right? You have two communities same people, but they're so, separated by a river. There's gonna be a civil war one day. It's so sad. But that's apparently part and parcel of being human. So we have to say yes, that is our collective story, and really powerfully transform So hopefully making sense. But let's look at these, and let's do a couple personal ones. We could do some family ones. We could try some bigger collective ones, right? Again, we're saying yes to them. We're honoring and respecting them. We're respecting that this is co-created, right? Depending on the size of the thought form in our lineage, maybe our lineage has been exploring survival and persecution for 1,000 years. Colonization for 500, being a colonizer for 500, right? Like, we don't know. But as we tune into it, we're going to say yes, that is a worthwhile exploration, that maybe really beautiful things have come about it, and then we've redirected towards something that is even more beautiful, even more spacious. Yeah. So weird. Let me pause and actually hear from people. Somebody did ask a question. Oh, this is actually a really good question. So, how much do thought forms influence our self-concept? I would say our self-concept is a thought form. And it is heavily influenced by story. Without thought forms, our self-concept is not, we would just be in the moment. And that's not necessarily good, right? Like, people all the time are like, oh my God, this is like, the earth is like a playground and it's a kindergarten. And I'm like, maybe for you, they're like, I frolic, and I'm like, it's a kindergarten and a PhD program, like, and people are like, I want to return to my childhood, and I'm like, and I see them picking their noses and like, having accidents everywhere, right? I'm like, we want to have innocence and wisdom, right? We want to have like curiosity, but like we also want to be like powerful, or at least for me, right? Like, don't have to believe this, right? But there's a way that we need to bridge inner child work and responsible adult work and bridge them, right? A lot of people are like, I want to just be like an inner child all the time, right? And like it gets a little avoidy, right? It gets a little, for me, a little ungrounded, a little avoidy. And then if you add spirituality, right? They like wear patchouli and white, and like they have to move to Hawaii, right? And they have to make a certain amount of money. And many of these people do, right? So they can be an inner child all the time, you know. But it can be pretty self-serving, right? Because children are also profoundly selfish, right? Like we don't think about children in that way, right? We wouldn't be like, damn, this like selfish baby just like eats all day, poops, right? We love them, right? And like even their poops, we're just like, oh my God, good job pooping, right? Um, but we have a lot of adults that want us to give them high fives when they poop, And I'm like, no, grow up, bro. Psychic kindergarten and PhD course. That is the earth, right? So, anyways, that's my critique of that system, of those systems. So with these thought forms coming all the way back, right? Like they are creating our identity. And we want those thought forms, right, to be authentic, right? We want our identity to be authentic, like in current time, but we don't want to be free of thought forms and constructs. There are lineages that try to release all thought forms and constructs, and that the people that embody those teachings, like they forget how to eat. Like in ancient India, a lot of like the gurus would do stuff like that, where they would completely shatter their whole self concept and identity. And they would have students that would feed them, like spoon feed them, because they would forget to eat. There's very famous ones, and like one teacher that like people started to like follow him around and like would literally be linked arms with their teacher, which is really auspicious and I'm sure it would be really fun. And the reason they started to do that was because the teacher, they'd leave him alone And he'd just start walking and start teaching everybody. And then like, you know, you'd see him 3 villages over, working as a blacksmith. And they'd be like, what the fuck, what happened? And they're like, I don't know. This guy asked me to, he asked me for help, so I'm helping him. And like there's one really famous story where like the teacher, they found him like a week later. He was like in the forest. Monkeys were bringing him offerings, and he would give the monkeys teachings. And they would be like, teacher, what are you doing? He's like, I found new students. He's like, they want to learn. I'm teaching them. And the monkeys were like feeding this teacher, so it happens, right? But that would be that like somehow like their relationship to reality dissolved, right? Where like helping humans and helping monkeys was now didn't matter, right? Like with that particular teacher, like they had embodied the source of like the divine mother so much that like food was no longer relevant. Like they would pee and poop themselves. Because they were just embodying that energy to bridge it from heaven to earth. And they were doing that for maybe for like, the next several generations to come, right? But to some maybe personal detriment, right? So constructs are important, thought forms are important, but we want them to be in current time. We don't want them to limit us, but we want them to be a part of a story that is like really fun and beautiful, right? We want our self-concept to be one that we like feel really proud of who we are, proud of ways that we've made choices, proud of what we've done, are doing, proud of what we're going to do, right? And that healthy pride, like healthy, appropriate pride, is from a collection of stories where we acted in alignment with our values, where when things got really difficult, we chose truth, right? And when things got really difficult and we were cowards, which happens, if anyone pretends to be an angel, pretends to be courageous, tells you they've never made mistakes, like they're a cult leader, and like just be careful. Don't give them your credit card number, right? Keep your clothes on around them too, right? Like just be careful, right? And because they might believe it, right? Or they're just scamming you. But if they might believe it, but if someone believes it that much, that means any mistake has to be everyone else's fault, right? Anytime they get angry, it's everyone else's fault, right? So just watch that stuff, right? But so we want to have a thought form identity structure where mistakes can be included, and like we have the self-talk that is healthy enough to be like, oh man, like I really didn't act in a way that I'm proud of. I lashed out, or maybe I was really cowardly. Like all these times I could have told the truth, that I didn't tell the truth. Like now it has this negative impact. Um, and right, the next and would be like, and that's why it's so important for me to choose courage. Again, that's why it's so important for me to tell the truth. I had this sneaking suspicion and I didn't know. And then now that sneaking suspicion, turned into a real crisis, turned into a real issue. And I wish I had told them sooner, right? Next time this ever happens, I'm going to be sure to tell the truth sooner, right? And there's no like, you don't have to like repent, right? We don't have to have an identity where like, I'm a piece of shit, right? Like I lie, right? Like, that's generally not that healthy unless someone's really prideful. We don't need like really intense negative story like that, but it can be helpful if someone's really prideful to remember. I have one friend, oh my god, this is a side note. I have one friend that inadvertently slash advertently has made 2 separate entire cults. He like moved to Sedona and people started thinking he was Archangel Michael. So then he started going by Archangel Michael, started teaching classes, started having a whole following. His own dad started to take his classes. And then slowly, right, these things always degrade, right? So he's like, I'm perfect. I'm an embodiment of an angel. He, of course, starts sleeping with some of his students. that starts to get weird. Like the person who was doing their finances committed like tax fraud. Everyone like it just all fell apart, right? And then he had to like leave Sedona. And then it happened again. He like moved somewhere else, and then he inadvertently got a huge following. And then I've known him for like maybe like 12 years now, and he hasn't made a cult since then. So I hope he's turned a new leaf. Right? But maybe for him, he does need to remember, like, don't forget the cult, right? And you're like, oh my God, something about your mother. Right? You're like, yes, 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 don't forget the cult, right? So if we've made a really big mistake, right, we forgive ourselves, but keep it close to you and not in a detrimental way, right? But you can remind yourself of what happens when you let pride win, right? You can remind yourself of the opposite, right? Would be like if we don't respect our own boundaries or if we don't respect ourselves, like that we make choices that like hurt us, hurt other people, right? So like we can, if needed, right? Like I personally, in my personal practice, do keep certain things very close, like cautionary tales. I keep them very close to my heart. And they're, I feel incredibly grateful that there's people out there making like what I think to be incredibly crazy mistakes, because then I don't have to do them and I can learn from these people's mistakes. Um, and I keep them really close to my heart, right? But those are thought forms, actually. Those are like little story constructs, right? Um, if I put the story in my aura, it'll change my aura, right? So we want a story that we're plugged into, like a TV show, right? If we watch a bunch of scary movies, then I have to wear all black, right? Then I have to have, a t-shirt that has a skull on it. I have to have a pocket knife, right? I have to wear a wallet with chains, Doc Martens, right? And all of those are congruent with the story, similar to the scary movie I watched. Let's pretend, right? Um, so the thought forms are congruent, and hopefully we started to see this, right? Like that therefore creates a certain color in my aura. And that also therefore changes the size and structure of my centers, right? So scary movie might close my crown, close my third eye, open my throat a lot, close my heart, open my solar plexus a lot, maybe open my second center a lot, and maybe like put a really big survival picture in my first energy center, right? If I binge watch Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, if I have the idea, sorry, that like my life is one of like being a hero, that story will create a certain color in my aura, right? Like that cloud is a particular color. This makes sense, yes? Please tell me if I'm like taking us in directions that you guys feel like I didn't take us there, if it's too big of a gap, right? So again, I watch Lord of the Rings. I start to look at my own life as like, you know what? Like I've lived through some crazy shit and I've really powerfully transformed it, right? And you're like, I'm kind of like that Frodo. I'm like that. Wait, is that Frodo Baggins? Yeah. Maybe I'm like Frodo myself, right? You're like, I think so. I think no, I can't exactly, right? So then maybe we can like bring that into our space, right? And then that creates a certain color, and that creates a certain lens as I experience my world, and even a certain lens as I experience my reality. Hopefully, I'm not throwing too many things out there, right? But this is what happens when like good friends of ours date someone who's really different, and then they start to look like them, talk like them. They start to talk about their life and their memories from that lens, right? And y'all have all seen it, right? They're like, I had a good friend. She started dating somebody with motorcycles, and slowly, right, she's just like, oh my God, that's like really cool. He like Harley Davidson motorcycles, right? And at first, she was just kind of like a regular. We would like rock climb together, right? And then slowly, she started like wearing like more black leather, and it was like incremental, right? Like it wasn't like too crazy. But maybe after like 6 months, she rides motorcycles all the time, right? She might have her own motorcycle. That has changed her identity and story. And now she's going to look at herself through that lens. Yeah. This happens with if somebody changes religion, moves, makes more money, makes less money, right? Like their story of themselves changes and then they start to rewrite their memories from that lens, right? Because our memories are kind of constantly being updated. Um, so how do our memories get updated? So like now, right? Like so in high school, right? I graduated 08. So again, I'm starting to get old. I used to be like, I'm pretty young to be teaching energy work online. Now I'm like, I'm pretty old to be teaching energy work online. Really quickly that happened. 5 years. So let's say if I think somebody in high school, right? Now that Trump is president, I might be like, I don't know if I like. I bet that person voted for Trump. You know, like in 2008, I was like, oh, they were pretty cool. I'm like, oh, they were different. I'm like, oh, they were like a farmer family. And now I'm like, they're probably Trump supporters, right? Like, I actually rewrite with the information I have now, the experience I had then. If I became, what are they, born again? If I became really strict born again Christian, I would look at the people in my life who I think were Christians growing up, and I would be like, what an awesome person. I was like, you know what? The Lord was always there for me, always on time. Right. And then anyone who's like not religious, right, be like, despicable. I'm like, I don't even know why I hung out with them ever. I'm like, I should have never sat with them at lunch. Right. I rewrote it based on what I value now. I reassess what I valued then. Makes sense. So these thought forms don't change. Sorry, these thought forms are changing. Sorry. These thought forms don't stay static, right? They're always evolving. Okay. You guys are so quiet today. Okay, I'm gonna wait for real. You guys tell me things. Questions, concerns. It's all starting to come together. Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Y'all get it? Y'all trust it? Okay. Well, so then let's do it. So we're gonna just kind of spend some time again. We're gonna unplug, maybe from a couple personal ones. I think I shared last time where I'm like, any limitation in your life, it's gonna have story around it. You could think about if we're like, oh, I'm just a really quiet person and we want to be more outgoing. If we're really outgoing, you want to be a little more quiet. Right? If we like suck with money, if we suck with people, if we get angry all the time, if we don't get angry enough, right? Like whatever it is, kind of like you can dip into the story around that behavior, belief, or identity, right? Person. Then next, you can look at anything on earth and there was a story there first, right? You could look at why the house you were living in was built. Why in this particular neighborhood? Why these desks, walls, right? Like they were story first. And you can look at any issue on earth, any politician making any choice that we agree with or don't, and you can find the story behind it. Because that politician is not the first person to make that choice. Right? Like they're standing on the shoulders of a lot of story. And you can look at that, right? And we can, instead of resisting a person, right, we can resist that story. And then we would recall our energies, give it its energies back. We would kind of like, if you know, if someone has like trying to do like a power over other people, I'm gonna find my own matching energy of times that like I feel like I have power over someone, or my own inability to have any power because at home our dad was really, really squished us. So we hate that this person has power over others because we hate that we didn't get to have power, right? And then we heal that relationship to power. And then now we have an analysis, right? Now we have an understanding of the mechanism producing this moment, right? So that's collectively. And then the next step would be connecting to like an archetypal story, right? Like a story that's like much bigger, vaster, is a source of pure love. It's a source of pure beauty, pure wisdom. And we just gently plug into these, let's call them like, so if there's like a little picture of me suffering, and then I'm like, I figure out that like by suffering, I somehow I'm like, well, I'm suffering, but like it's because people are mean and I'm an empath. And actually, like me suffering is because people are bad, which makes me good. And we can just release like, well, what if I could be good and I don't have to make others bad? What if I'm good and they're good too? What if I'm good, they're good, but the situation was really difficult? What would I need to learn to have a different outcome, right? Not how long do I need to wait until everyone on earth is an empath, right? It'd be like, what do I need to learn so that as an empath, I can have the relationships I want, right? And I don't have to move to Hawaii and wear patchouli, make $1 million, and only have friends that also make $1 million, right? So instead, I might be like, I might need to like develop better boundaries, better communication skills, need to spend more alone time, right? And then that clarity, I can plug into vaster clarity. Like, what if there was an ocean of clarity that could hold me, right? What if there was an ocean of kindness, gentleness? What if there was an ocean of courage? And I gently plug into that ocean of courage and let it evolve my story. Yeah, that's the last step. Oceans of courage, oceans of enoughness, oceans of wisdom, oceans of clarity, oceans of gentleness, oceans of this is going to suck, but it's really important to do anyways. Oceans of, people are going to blame me and that's okay. They get to blame me. Oceans of, I have to tell the truth or it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. Oceans of, right? Like, does that make sense? Does that last step? And then if it's an archetypal being, you can connect to, right? If oceans of patience, if to you you see like Mother Teresa or the Virgen de Guadalupe or the Buddha, or a monkey, right? Or an elephant, right? But we plug into that field of patience that grows my patience story, my patience thought form now is nurtured, it's resourced, right? The thought form, my little thought form cloud is plugged in, and then the cloud will kind of like boom, like be empowered. So that's why we want to make sure that like right inner wisdom, and we want to make sure that thoughtful and updated. Right? We don't want to give our mom all of our passwords, keys to our car and home, right? Our phone password, right? Like that's too much power for a mom, right? We don't want to tell her where our journal is hidden, right? Like moms can't, there's no mom on earth who won't, who has the inner strength to not read our journal, to not go into our house and just leave a couple groceries. Especially if your mom like lives close to you, right? She just had to borrow the car just for the day. Uh, she like right, like moms are gonna breach those boundaries. So we're not trying to plug in our like unrefined thought forms. We're trying to refine the thought forms and then plug them into the story that grows them. Okay, anyways, all right. Let's do it then. So let's refresh our connections to the earth. And let's say hello to our container. And then let this container kind of like just give you a new hello. And you can reiterate to the container everything that you wanted to learn, questions that we had that we wanted to explore. And then just kind of let the container mobilize the energies to support you in exploring this. And then if we still have a couple questions, imagine we can almost like float those questions into the container, almost like little bubbles. And if there's things that we've already learned and gained from this course, just kind of let yourself say hello to those and be gently integrating. Gently these energies to be flowing and opening. And as these energies are opening, let's just kind of gently wash over ourselves with the earth, healing, nourishing water. These beautiful resources, we're just going to kind of gently be releasing in authentic energies, calling authentic energies. Gently healing and evolving the crown, third eye, front and back, front and back, our heart, front and back, solar plexus, front and back, second center, first energy center, and then our whole root system. And then for fun, imagine that we can take everything that we've been exploring together. Right, we're gonna have our guides double check that everything's supportive, it's aligned. Flow these energies into our Akasha. Gently allowing our Akashic to evolve and heal, expand. So that as we're kind of taking that information, integrating it, assimilating it at that Akashic level, that it can expand our own inner wisdom. It can help us like kind of gather more wisdom from the container, from the course, from the exploration. And again, we can like assimilate more information. And again, we're going to gently heal and evolve crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, second center, first energy center, and our root system. We're going to gently evolve our identity and self concept. And then we're just going to kind of like find the edges of our aura. And sometimes I like to imagine like my grounding cord just kind of like grounds my auric bubble. And then I'm just gonna imagine like I could scan for any colors of energy that are not authentic. And sometimes we can explore that by allowing your inner wisdom to make your color, so your authentic energies a particular color. And then it can show you inauthentic energies with a different color. Time, bringing sparkles, lots of validation. Celebration, gently healing and evolving our arc bubble. We can be using the tools. You can kind of keep any magnets, any elemental energies that we're using to do healings. And then let's just imagine we open to working with any programming. So any programs that are kind of like limiting our ability to introspect, to do this energy work. And these could be cultural, societal, familial. They can be from other traditions, be from past lives. And we're just going to let earth energies come up and then gently touch those programs. And then just recalling your energies from them, giving them their energies back. And then we can use the different techniques. So if we want to use like that psychic glove, we can be removing first where we're hooked into the story. And then using that psychic glove to kind of break up that story, our subscription. And as we're releasing those energies, be recalling authentic energies, placing them with your authentic spiritual information. And gently allow this program. Well, this was another technique. Let's imagine like we can find like the opposite color, shape, or opposite story. And just gonna bring it close to this program. And then again, with open to our own spiritual information. And then just gonna see if you can get a little bit of the content of this program. If there's a particular emotion, good. And then just gonna see if we kind of find that feeling and the flavor of it. And bring a grounding cord to it. And round. Let's just try to connect to these archetypal energies just gently. Again, see if we can find the story. Mm, very good. And then once again, allow your inner wisdom to be filling these spaces with your authentic energies, your authentic spiritual information. Time to just gently evolve our crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, second center, first energy center. And then just kind of gently release that archetypal. And then let yourself kind of like retranslate that information into one that is like really human, really aligned with your goals, really aligned with your life, this reality. Let's refresh our connection here one more time. Nice. And then we're just gonna go one step deeper. Let's think of an emotion or some limitation. Again, maybe like a pattern of behaviors, maybe like something we're really in resistance to. And just let yourself ground. Just kind of like feel where that thought form is. Like, where's the cloud? Or if there's a program, right? That cloud might be like a little box. All your energies from that story. Start to wash over ourselves with the element, just starting to unplug. Just gently refilling the spaces with our authentic energies, releasing, recalling. And if we use any techniques, psychic gloves, magnet. This one might be a little bit bigger. Let's start by really honoring as we're unplugging that this thought form is valid. That for the people that this is authentic to, that it can be meaningful. As we kind of respect these thought forms, their validity, kind of see again what they're like promising thought forms or programs. Again, gently rolling around, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, second center, first energy center. Gently recalling our authentic energies, releasing inauthentic energies. And then one more time, I'm just going to look at the thought form and finding the corresponding story for us. So the beautiful thing that this is offering to other people, the thing that it's promising. We're going to let ourselves connect to those like archetypal or earth energies. And again, gently recall your energies, even from this archetypal energy. Gently coming back to your body. Gently coming back to this moment in time. Allow all of these energies to start to like flow into our vaster wisdom, evolving us, growing us, expanding our identity, our self-concept. Sparkles, lots of validation, lots of celebration. So again, gently come back to our body, to this moment in time. Let's just say hello to our container one more time. All the beautiful resources here, knowing that we can come back to this container anytime in the future. And then allowing ourselves again to expand and evolve how we work with energies, how we understand energies. And then start to recall our energy from one another, thanking the container, our guides, vaster guidance, the earth, all the wonderful energies that helped us throughout this course. Good. Imagine we can start flowing these energies back in time, forward in time, helping us grow again in our wisdom, patience, gentleness, courage, love, our integrity. Gently let these energies evolve all of our energy centers. Again, ground to the bottom of our feet. And refresh our connection to the earth. And then let's recall our energies again from one another, giving everyone the energies back. Certainly give me my energies back. I'll give you your energies back. We'll do that a couple times. Making sure we're nicely individuated. One more time, lots of sparkles, lots of validation, lots of celebration, and boom. Cool. What do we think? Um, Weird, fun. Platforms are big. They're big. They're crazy. They're out there. But it's good. Yeah, and don't try this on your pets. Don't try this on your friends. Now's the perfect time to complain. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And then make sure to, I didn't say it enough explicitly, but make sure to unplug, right? Don't stay running archetypal. I don't know if anyone felt it, but like it was kind of like a little loopy. I felt a little loopy when I touched into those archetypal energies. Uh, And yeah, someone's asking like private message, like, they passed out. This one of all of the sessions I like ever do, right? I'm like, if I'm helping someone connect to like their essence, if I'm helping someone like touch into the fabric of reality, if I'm helping someone completely fundamentally transform the stories, like the thought forms and programs, those three are gonna fuck you right up. Like they're gonna change everything. Like if you stay awake, like especially if you're like like really trying to like kids when they're trying to fall asleep, right? Or like when we're driving, right? Like don't try to force it. But these are the ones that are gonna pass us out. So totally normal. Definitely trust. Um, Even like recordings of this, I wouldn't do this one like maybe like more than once a week even. One of my teachers, like he makes all these little videos and like you can like listen to them. And for many years, I think want to say like 2 years, I listened to a meditation of his every night, like as I went to bed, and then listened to it all night, or like for however long. Like so I'd like listen to like maybe 30 minutes of it. I'd fall asleep while he was doing a meditation, and then like wake up the next day, and it was awesome. Every single time I felt completely evolved. So definitely like these are things that like do it once a week, not more. These are big shifts, and we need at least a week to like assimilate them, so anyways, okay. Somebody private messaged me. The archetypal stuff seemed like when they're brought through, the shifted from fast, was able to open. Oh, good. Okay. Nice, nice. Yeah. Did anyone feel like a little loopy with the archetype? Oh, and also, we're not plugging the thought form into the archetype, right? Like, I'm disconnecting from the thought form. I'm finding my story. I plug my story into an archetype, right? And again, it's really important because thought forms are co-created, right? Like there's thousands of people plugged into this story. So we don't have permission to plug them into an archetype, right? And even if we do that, you'll get kickback. Like they're gonna let you know that you're violating their consent and their boundaries. Um, yeah. And it's also just kind of generally not cool, right? So yeah. But other questions? Uh, yeah, did anyone feel loopy? Did anyone get kind of stuck? Anyone get kind of scared? All normal things. Yeah. If anyone passed out, very normal. When I plugged into the archetype session, it got weird for me. Lots of pictures, and I forgot what we were doing for a second. Yeah, but did it feel like did it feel good, or did it stay weird? Is my um yeah, and like I was even like in my personal practice, I don't if we were to kind of like make a direction, like I don't plug into the thought form. Like maybe and I'm saying that and I said plug into the thought form, so maybe I fucked this up, but like actually I open to the thought form coming to me. And then I would imagine almost like 3 feet above my head, I'm informing the archetype of who I am. Right. So the second that the archetypal thought form enters my aura, it's attuned to me, right? Who I am, what I'm up to, my age, my fitness goals, my financial goals, my 5 year plan, my 401k. I'm like, if you can help me with that for I'm like, right. So if I go to an archetype, it's different if the archetype can gently come to me and attune to me and then plug into my story. So I apologize if I wasn't so clear. And that will make it less messy. This is also my critique of when people are like, and there's certain systems that are like, when you ground, like you shoot these roots into the earth. One tradition is even like you shoot the roots, they're at least 12 feet deep. And then at the end, you imagine spikes and they like spike into the ground and then you pull energy up, right? And I'm like, that's a little weird, like it's fine as a system, right? But I'm like, even better is like you can invite the appropriate earth energies that are just for you, what you're up to today in this particular moment, and what the grounding cord I call on for when I'm reading a book is different than the grounding cord I need for when I'm teaching, is different for the grounding cord for when I'm doing something creative, right? And I can ask the earth to bring those energies up versus like shooting roots down and pulling those energies, right? Like I'm little compared to the earth. The earth is infinite for all intents and purposes compared to me, right? So asking the earth to send me a cord of energy, way more powerful than me trying to like take it. So same, you trying to plug into archetypal energies, not as cool as archetypal energies plugging into us. So apologies, that was my fault. So and more of a general more of a general statement, not specific to the question. I figured itself out. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, so long as no one's still stuck. Just want to make sure we're all good and back. But thank y'all. This was a really fun course. I'll probably teach this again sometime in the future, in like a year or two. Um, I haven't had enough time to like ask my teachers more about thought forms, but it really is, again, I've shared like, in my opinion, the most like subtle realm of energies, the most powerful realm of energies, and like a really like we really get kind of keys into like how our reality works and like a big shaper of like consciousness of the world, right? It's like the stories that people are plugging into. So again, be very respectful of other people's stories, be very respectful of their identities, of their programs, of their religion, of their, you know, systems of, holy fire, angelic, purple, Reiki. I'm like, damn, that's not a good example of me being respectful. I'm like, even if it's stupid, respect them, right? I'm just kidding. No, but respect them, right? Like we don't want to impose on them. We don't want to pull them out of these things. And then also, anytime that we're learning, just feel when people are trying to program you, feel when they're trying to pull you into their worldview or put their worldview into your kind of space. And we do that a lot. That's like normal and natural. Generally people aren't going to be that forceful, but if they are, you recall your energies, you give that thought form a grounding cord. You're just like, that's a very nice thought form for you. And then you recall your energies and recall your spiritual information and like your own purpose and direction. So we can always kind of like do these things skillfully and kindly. Once again, like just focus on your own practice for the next while. you know I would even say, maybe if we're willing to, if we're like humble enough, if we're like dedicated enough, give it even like a year or two before we like pull it out and like use it on someone else, just because it's that powerful and it's that subtle, this tool. So be really gentle. If you feel really confident, if you're already doing sessions, talk to me. Like just and we can check in, right? But we want to again do it from a place of like respecting this person's journey first, asking their inner wisdom if they want any support. Because it might be entirely appropriate for someone to suck at setting boundaries, and that for that to be exactly where they need to be, right? And I don't need to like, change their relationship to their childhood for them to set boundaries so that I can feel better in our sessions, right? So I feel less uncomfortable with their dating choices or like who they want to be or whatever, right? Like sometimes it's our own discomfort that I'm like, oh, they need to set more boundaries. Why? Because I don't like it, right? Which means I have shitty boundaries. So, anyways, which is how that works. But so again, just like be really gentle with this if you ever pull it out as part of like a set of skills, right? But have at it, right? With your own beliefs, with your own stories, hit it, have fun, do cool stuff gently, easily, right? And then anything can be undone, right? If you remove a thought form or a program, if I remove a Catholic program and it fucks me right up, guess what? The Catholic Church will always take you back, right? Like these programs will always be there for you, right? I'm like, oh no, I was trying to feel enough. Now I feel too much, right? There will always be an invitation to not enoughness right there for you. It'll have warm cookies. When you join the dark side, they will always have the best snacks, and they'll be ready for you. So don't join the dark side, even though they have snacks. But yeah, just play with it, you know. All of us, I think it's the usual suspects here. So thank y'all for doing this with me. And then as far as like points of connection, I'm gonna be like a little bit traveling this summer. I'm gonna be getting married. So probably for June, I'll be out of doing sessions. But I'm always around for sessions. Y'all let me know. If anyone, I think most people already know and aren't like new. I'm sure I'll do courses. I want to do more things in person since I feel like Zoom gets annoying and exhausting. So I want to do some stuff in person. I'm gonna get back with y'all about like dates. I'll probably do something in Sedona since it's really close. And Tucson's gonna be really hot in the summer. So I got that cooking, and I will let y'all know. Maybe we'll do ancestral stuff. Maybe we'll do timeline stuff. All that stuff's really deep, and it's really fun to do in person. Maybe nervous system stuff. And then I want to do a year-long course maybe in the fall for how to do like hands-on healing work. So like more of the physical stuff of the body. So um that's been cooking for a while. So I think I'm ready to take it out of the oven. I can feel like the ding ding ding's about to go off. So I'll let you guys know when it's out of the oven. And that's the stuff in the future, but for the rest of June I'm gonna be running around. Cool. So thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for trusting me with this work. Definitely take care of it. Be very diligent and kind and generous with yourselves, your practices. And the world is an intense place right now, and there's never nothing we can do. Cool. All right, y'all. See you soon. Bye.